Braga is a city and a municipality in the northwestern Portuguese district of Braga in the historical and cultural Minho Province. The city has 137,000 inhabitants, and the municipality, which includes 37 civil parishes, has a resident population of 181,494 inhabitants, representing the seventh largest municipality in Portugal. Its area is 183.40 square kilometers. Its agglomerated urban area extends from the Cávado River to the Este River. The city was the European Youth Capital in 2012. It is host to the Archdiocese, the oldest in Portugal. Under the Roman Empire, known as Braga Augusta, the settlement was center of the province of Galicia. Braga is a major hub for inland and northern Portugal. History. Antiquity. Human occupation of the region of Braga dates back thousands of years, documented by vestiges of monumental structures starting in the megalithic era. During the Iron Age, the Castro culture extended into the northwest, characterized by Bracari peoples who occupied the high ground in strategically located fortified settlements. The region became the domain of the km²², or Bracarenses, a Celtic tribe who occupied what is now northern Portugal, Galicia and Asturias in the northwest of Iberia. The Romans began their conquest of the region around 136 BC, and finished it during the reign of Emperor Augustus. The civitas of Braga Augusta was founded in 20 BC in the context of the administrative reorganization of these Roman acquisitions. Braga was rededicated to the emperor, taking on the name Braga Augusta. The city of Braga Augusta developed greatly during the 1st century and reached its maximum extension around the 2nd century. Towards the end of the 3rd century, Emperor Diocletian promoted the city to the status of capital of the administrative area Conventus Bracarensis, the southwestern area of the newly founded Roman province of Galicia. Middle Ages. During the Germanic invasions of the Iberian Peninsula, the area was conquered by the Suebi, a Germanic people from Central Europe. In 410, the Suebi established a kingdom in northwest Iberia, which they maintained as Galicia, and made Braga the capital. About 584, the Visigothic conquerors of Hispania took control of Galicia. They renounced the Arian and Priscillianist heresies during two synods held here in the 6th century. As a consequence, the archbishops of Braga later claimed the title of Primate of Portugal, then a county, and for a long period, claimed supremacy over the entire Hispanic Church. Yet, their authority was never accepted throughout Hispania. Braga had an important role in the Christianization of the Iberian Peninsula. The first known bishop of Braga, Paternus, lived at the end of the 4th century. Although St. Ovidius is sometimes considered one of the first bishops of the city, in the early 5th century, Paulus Orosius wrote several theological works that expounded the Christian faith, while in the 6th century Bishop Martin of Braga converted the Suebi from Arianism to Catholicism. At the time, Martin also founded an important monastery in Dumio, and it was in Braga that Archbishopric of Braga held the councils. The transition from Visigothic reigns to the Muslim conquest of Iberia was very obscure, representing a period of transition and decline for the city. The Moors captured Braga early in the 8th century, but were eventually repelled by Christian forces under Alfonso III of Asturias in 868 and were definitely repelled by Ferdinand I of Leon and Castile in 1040. As a consequence, the bishopric was restored in 1070. The first new bishop, Pedro, started rebuilding the cathedral. Between 1093 and 1147, Braga became the residential seat of the Portuguese court. In the early 12th century, Count Henry of Portugal and Bishop Geraldo de Moissac reclaimed the archbishopric seat for Braga, with power over a large area in Iberia. The medieval city developed around the cathedral, with the maximum authority in the city retained by the archbishop. Kingdom. In the 16th century, due to its distance from the coast and provincial status, Braga did not profit from the adventures associated with the age of Portuguese discoveries. Yet, Archbishop Diogo de Souza, who sponsored several urban improvements in the city, including the enlargement of streets, the creation of public squares and the foundation of hospitals and new churches, managed to modernize the community. He expanded and remodeled the cathedral by adding a new chapel in the Manueline style, and generally turning the medieval town into a Renaissance city. A similar period of rejuvenation occurred during the 18th century, when the archbishops of the House of Braganza contracted architects like André Soares and Carlos Amarante to modernize and rejuvenate the city. They began a series of architectural transformations to churches and civic institutions in the Baroque style, including the Municipal Hall, public library, the Sanctuary of Bom Jesus de Monte, and many urban palaces. With the invasion of French troops during the Peninsular Wars, the city was relegated, once again, to a provincial status. But, by the second half of that century, with influence from Portuguese immigrants living in Brazil, new money and tastes resulted in improvements to architecture and infrastructures. Republic. In the 20th century, Braga faced similar periods of growth and decline. Demographic and urban pressures from urban to rural migration meant that the city's infrastructures had to be improved in order to satisfy greater demands. Geography. Physical geography. Situated in the heart of Minho, Braga is located in a transitional region between the east and west, between mountains, forests, grand valleys, plains and fields, constructing natural spaces molded by human intervention. Geographically, with an area of 184 square kilometers, it is bordered in the north by the municipalities of Vila Verde and Amaras, northeast and east by Povoa de Lanhoso, south and southeast with Guimarães and Vila Nova de Famalicão, and west by the municipality of Barcelos. The topography in the municipality is characterized by irregular valleys, interspersed by mountainous spaces, fed by rivers running in parallel with the principal rivers. In the north it is limited by the Cávado River, in the south by terrain of the Serra dos Picos to a height of 566 meters, and towards the east by the Serra dos Carvalhos to a height of 479 meters. Opening to the municipalities of Vila Nova de Famalicão and Barcelos. The territory extends from the northeast to southwest, accompanying the valleys of the two rivers, fed by many of its tributaries, forming small platforms between 20 meters and 570 meters. The municipality lies between 20 meters and 572 meters, with the urbanized center located at approximately 215 meters. In the north, where the municipality is marked by the Cávado, the terrain is semi-planar. The east is mountainous owing to the Serra de Carvalho 479 meters, Serra dos Picos 566 meters, Monte de Samiro 572 meters and Monte de Santa Marta 562 meters. Between the Serra de Carvalho and Serra dos Picos is the river Esp, forming the valley of Vale d'Este. Similarly, between the Serra dos Picos and Monte de Samiro exists the plateau of Sobreposta Pedralva, To the south and west, the terrain is a mix of mountains, plateaus and medium-sized valleys, permitting the passage of the River Este, and giving birth to other confluences including the River Vega, River Labriosa and various ravines. Climate. Braga has a Mediterranean climate similar to other cities in the northwest Iberian Peninsula except for having significantly hotter summer temperatures due to being some distance from the ocean. The absolute maximum is as much as 6 degrees Celsius higher than for A Coruña or Santiago de Compostela. The highest recorded temperature is 41.3 degrees Celsius while the lowest recorded is -6.3 degrees Celsius. The climate is affected by the Atlantic Ocean, which influences westerly winds that are channeled through the region's valleys, transporting large humid air masses. Consequently, the climate tends to be pleasant with clearly defined seasons. The air masses have the effect of maintaining the relative humidity around 80%. Annual mean temperatures hover between 12.5 degrees Celsius and 17.5 degrees Celsius. Owing to nocturnal cooling, frost usually forms frequently between 3 and 4 months of the year, and annually the region receives 1,659 millimeters of precipitation, with the major intensity occurring between fall, winter and spring. Human geography. The municipality is densely populated, with approximately 962 inhabitants per square kilometer, equivalent to 181,474 residents. It is one of the more populous territories in Portugal, as well as one of the younger markets. The majority of the population concentrates in the urban area of Braga itself, where densities are more than 10,000 per square kilometer. The Bragaense population consists of approximately 78,954 male and 85,238 female individuals, with 35% of the population less than 25 years of age, while seniors conform to 11% of the population. The working population of the municipality occupies 54% of the structure. Although largely native Portuguese, other segments of the population include enclaves of Brazilian, African, Chinese and Eastern European peoples. The urban structure includes approximately 70,268 residences, even as the typical classic representation of family only includes 51,173 members in the municipality. The extra homes are primarily temporary residences, normally for students, migrant workers and professionals working in the urban congroup. There is also a great number of homes owned by Portuguese residents living overseas, even as constant development has attracted new growth in the population. Further, the difference in resident to transitory population means that, on average, the population of Braga hovers between 174,000 and 230,000 individuals annually. Growth in the population, roughly 16.2% between 1991 and 2001, occurred mainly in the older suburban civil parishes, such as Nogueira, Frosos, Real and Lamasses. Administratively, the municipality is divided into 37 civil parishes. The city of Braga proper includes only the following urban civil parishes. There is no formal city government, only municipal government authority, with local administration handled by the individual juntas de freguesia or civil parish councils. Economy. The major industries in the municipality are construction, metallurgy and mechanics, software development and web design. The computer industry is growing rapidly. Transportation. Although the region hosts its own airfield in Palmeira, the principal airport of note is São Carneiro International Airport, located 50 kilometers away in Porto. Access is made by public transit to the city centre or aerobus. Braga is serviced by both regional and high-speed rail connection to major centres in the region. Architecture. The region of Braga is scattered with Neolithic, medieval and modernist monuments, buildings and structures that permeates its historical character, attracting tourism and promoting the area's cultural heritage. Although there are many examples of these structures, only the following have been classified by the Instituto de Gestão de Patrimônio Arquitetônico e Arqueológico as national monuments. Archaeological Castro of São Mamadé. Roman milestones. Several Roman-era granite markers currently on display at the Museum de Diogo de Sousa, dating from AD 41 to 238, that is, the reigns of Emperor Claudius to Maximinus II. Roman Thermae of Maximinus, discovered in the 20th century. The Thermae occupy 800 square meters in the civil parish of Cívada, and were constructed in the 1st to late 3rd century. Civic Arch of Porta Nova, Rua do Salto, a Baroque and neoclassical arch designed by André Soares in the late 18th century, and decorates the western gate of a medieval wall. It was opened in 1512 and since has been traditionally used to promote to visiting dignitaries and celebrities. Roman Thermae of Maximinus, an ancient Roman public baths complex that was integrated into the life of Braga Augusta. During the first centuries of Cívada, Palace of the Falcões, a Baroque-era palace originally commissioned by Francisco de Meira Carrillo on 23 July 1703, and later, upon successive renovations, used by the civil governor's residence. Fountain of the Idol, the 1st-century Roman fountain dedicated to an indigenous god, located in the central civil parish of São José de São Lázaro. Fountain of the Iron Waters, following the discovery in July 1173 of iron-rich springs in the parish of Freão. Archbishop Gaspar de Bragança ordered the municipal council to begin the canalization of these waters for public use, giving rise to a series of fountains, such as the Baroque-decorated main fountain. Hospital of São Marcos, with a facade comparable to any religious monument in the city. The Hospital of São Marcos is an example of the complex Baroque style of Carlos Amarante, featuring ornate double belfry and accents. Palace of Varejão, an 18th-century Baroque Rococo urban residence, with richly decorated blue azulejo facade of André Soares. Residence of the Cravos, a Renaissance-era shop residence, constructed outside the old walls, characteristic of late Renaissance architecture and one of the few examples of a building covered in wood lattice facade from this period. Seven Sources Aqueduct, a complex network of aqueducts that provided potable water to citizenry of Braga. Teatro Circo, 20th-century revivalist theatre, known for its architecture as much for the films, theatre plays and performances. Bridge of Prado, Bridge of Prosello, Military Tower of Santiago, part of the ancient walls of Braga. The Tower of Santiago was designed by Portuguese Baroque master André Soares, based on a mixture of Gothic, Baroque and Rococo elements. Tower of Castle of Braga, actually the remnants of the castle's keep, constructed during the reign of King Denis of Portugal, which was part of the defensive system of the city of Braga, and included a semicircular walled enclosure centered on the Circuit Cathedral. religious archiepiscopal palace of Braga between the 14th–18th centuries, a religious residence, but after the 20th century, the home of the municipal offices, public library and archive. Chapel of the Espírito Santo, an example of mixed styles. The chapel includes elements of Baroque, Neoclassical and Mannerist eras. Chapel of Nossa Senhora da Conceição, a simple single-nave chapel constructed in the Baroque style. Chapel of São Bento, constructed in the middle of the 18th century. The chapel was blessed by Archbishop José of Bragança in 1755. Chapel of Senhora Bom Sucessor, a Baroque and Neoclassical chapel, is highlighted by a main facade, typical of entresòls, but constructed by Carlos Amarante at the beginning of his career, who timidly applied neoclassical decorative elements. Chapel of the Coimbras, a Manueline chapel, probably designed by Castilian architect Felipe Odata, with sculptures attributed to Hodart. An altar by João de Arruao and posterior tomb sculptures by the same artist. Church of Santa Cruz, and the Hospital of the Brotherhood of the Holy Cross of Jerusalem, constructed in 1581, and later supported by the nuns of the Order Hospitaller. Church of Santa Eulalia is a 13th–14th century Romanesque church, located near Bom Jesus de Monte. Church of Santa Maria, constructed in 1560, under the orders of Archbishop Bartolomeu dos Martires, as a church of the Society of Jesus. Church of Santo André, an example of the reformulations of the modernist aesthetic of the mid-20th century. The 18th century church was adapted and expanded after the parishes' de-annexation in 1975. Chapel of São Frutuoso, also known as the Chapel of São Frutuoso of Montelhos of the Chapel of São Salvador of Montelhos, is a pre-Romanesque chapel, forming part of a group of religious buildings that include the Royal Church, originally built by the Visigoths in the 7th century, in the form of a Greek cross. Chapel of São Sebastião das Caraveleiras, Church of São Martinho, the Baroque and Classical parochial church of Espinho, known for its ornate facade and belfry, as well as its Rococo interior. Church of São Miguel de Frosos, a 16th century parochial church in the civil parish of Frosos. Church of São Miguel de Gualta, part of the intense building period of the 16th–17th century. The parochial church of Galta was constructed in the 17th century, but later remodeled during the 18th century. Church of São Pio, located in Arcos. The church is an early 18th century church. Church of São Paulo, the historical seminary, and Church of St. Paul, with its contrast between Stoic facade and decorated Baroque interior, built in the era of Archbishop Bartholomew. Church of São Pedro de Lomar, remnant of ancient Benedictine monastery of São Pedro in Lomar. The Church of St. Peter exemplifies a mix of Baroque, Mannerist and Neoclassical architecture. Church of São Pedro de Maximinos, known for the missing organ of organist Manuel de Sarcautu. Church of São Tiago. Church of São Vicente, Convent of Nossa Senhora de Carmo, principally recognizable for its central spire belfry, which was designed by João de Moura Coutinho de Almeida ECA and constructed in the 17th–18th century. Church of the Misericordia, Church of the Third Order of St. Francis the Terceiros began the process of constructing the church in 1685, which they dedicated to Our Lady of Conception, Portuguese, Nossa Senhora da Conceição. Church, Convent and College of the Congregation of São Felipe de Acutar, attributed to the architect André Soares. For the complex, risky facade of the church and corner convent windows, monk's chapel, and a table of Our Lady of Pain. Convent of Nossa Senhora da Conceição, which includes the chapel of São Domingos, an 18th century convent home to the Instituto Monsenhor Arioso. Convent of Populo, the Mannerist, Baroque, Rococo and neoclassical austere elements of the convent belying the extravagant interior that was originally the home to Augustan monks, highlighted by the Baroque facade of the Church of Populo. Convent of Salvador began with the need to transfer the nuns from the monastery of Vitorino das Donas in 1528. Convent of São Francisco de Montelhos, the Baroque, Rococo and neoclassical convent, highlighted by the imposing three-story facade of the Church of São Jerónimo. Cross of Nossa Senhora dos Aflitos, a Baroque cross on an Ionic column, with an image of Christ in wood, surmounted by a rectangular Tuscan colonnade and roof. Cross of the Espírito Santo, Monastery of Minho, the ancient religious seat founded by Martin of Braga in the provincial centre of Jume. Monastery of Tibais, the 17th–18th century Benedictine monastery renowned for the ornate, artistic gilt work in its chancel and altars. Sanctuary of Bom Jesus de Monte, constructed on Monte Santo, overlooking the urban sprawl of Braga, the 18th to early 19th century. Neoclassic sanctuary and church is reachable by trail of Bom Jesus funicular. Sanctuary of Nossa Senhora do Semeiro, isolated on the hilltop of Monte do Semeiro. The church and retreat began in 1861, for the mind of Father Martinho Antonio Pereira da Silva, who wished to construct a monument dedicated to Our Lady of the Conception. Sanctuary of Santa Maria Madalena, located on Monte Falpera. The Baroque-era sanctuary church was designed by local architect André Soares, incorporating decorative elements into a two-bell tower homage to the Mary Magdalene. Este Acute Cathedral of Braga, wayside shrine of São Brás, although conjecturally a contemporary monument. The wayside shrine in Ferreiros has the characteristics of many Baroque monuments in Braga. Cross of Campo das Hortas, Cross of Santana, Cross of Tibais. Museums. In addition, many of the district's treasures and historical artifacts are housed in several museums that are scattered throughout the city, such as Museum of the Biscainhos, Portuguese, Museu dos Biscainhos, housed in the historical palace of the Biscainhos. The museum exhibits a permanent collection of decorative art that includes furniture, ceramics, European and Oriental porcelain, European glass, European and Portuguese watches and clocks. Treasure Museum of the Este Acute Cathedral. The collection varies, but collects together artifacts from the 16th to 18th century during the period of religious, cultural exploration associated with the cathedral, including images and azulejo tiles. Museum of Image, dedicated to photography, located near the Arco da Porta Nova and Braga Castle. Museum Medina, located in the same building as the Museum of Pius XII. The collection is the home to the 83 oil paintings and 21 drawings of the painter Enrique Medina. Museum of Nogueira da Silva, bequeathed to the University of Minho. The collection includes artifacts, paintings, furniture and sculptures collected over a lifetime, such as Renaissance artwork, 17th furniture, ceramics and objects in ivory, silver and religious art. Museum of Pius XII, housing a collection of Paleolithic, Neolithic and Bronze Age implements, prehistoric and Luso-Roman pottery. Diogo de Souza Museum. Its collection includes many items discovered during archaeological excavations within the municipality, extending as far back as the Paleolithic to the Middle Ages. Museum of String Instruments. The collection features Portuguese instruments as far back as the Middle Ages, including cavaquinhos, Portuguese guitars, mandolins and banjos, among others. Education. The city is the headquarters and main campus for the Universidade de Minho, a public university founded in 1973. a campus of Portugal's oldest private university of Portugal, the Universidade Católica Portuguesa, was also established in 1967, as well as the Escola Secundária Sá de Miranda. In the late 2000s, the International Iberian Nanotechnology Laboratory also opened their International Research Center in the city. The Braga Pedagogical Farm is a farm dealing with animals and agriculture, welcoming extracurricular activities from schools and visitors. Sports. Braga's football team, Sporting Clube de Braga, was founded in 1921 and play in the top division of Portuguese football, the Liga Sagres. From Braga Municipal Stadium, carved out of the Monte Castro hill that overlooks the city, Braga has had considerable success in recent years, winning the Taça de Portugal for the second time in 2016 and reaching the Europa League final in 2011, which they lost to fellow Portuguese side FC Porto. The Rampa da Falpera, a round of the European Hill Climb Championship, is held every year in the outskirts of the city. The Circuito Vasco Samiro and adjacent the Cartodromo International de Braga are located around the local airfield. The racing track held European Touring Car Cup events in 2009 and 2010, and the KIB has held rounds of the Karting World Championship.